Thank you very much. Good morning all, and I must confess to feeling literally like the odd man out. With due apologies to a few of us who are strewn around here. I think our first speaker literally needs no introduction. She's been a 7-time Member of Parliament, correct me if I'm wrong, 7 or 8, 7-time Member of Parliament. She's served in 4 governments now in various capacities. And she's literally a person, I won't even say a word, a person of many parts. Animal rights activist, environmental activist, writer. She's even made a film, I think a documentary film, and written several books. And is someone who's trying to push the boundaries of social policy in ways that some might find a little intimidating, others find it someone who's actually seeing the future. Which is why I think it's only appropriate that we start this morning with Maneka Gandhi, who's a very special person who's been invited this morning as the Minister for Women and Child Development. But before I invite her on stage, one of the various measures her ministry has taken is an initiative with Facebook, the hashtag 100 Women Achievers Initiative. And I think the aim of it is essentially to showcase just how far the Indian woman has actually gone. As Kali said, there's a new Indian woman out there, completely unrecognizable perhaps from what was the stereotype 30, 40 years ago. I often use the example of the Fogart sisters, this wrestling family of Haryana. And it's a remarkable story that in the state with supposedly the worst sex ratio, you're having these women sports persons emerging and playing a sport like wrestling and doing so remarkably well. In this new age of the new Indian woman, I think it's great to celebrate Indian women achievers. So let's just have a look at this Facebook initiative with the ministry, hashtag 100 Women Achievers.
We've all had women in our lives who've made a difference, who've changed the course of our own lives, who left a mark on the entire community and changed it for the better. We don't thank them enough. All these wives and mothers and teachers and counselors. Here is your chance to honor the women who have made a difference to your community, to your own life.
I'm nominating a woman who symbolizes Indian beauty.
I want to vote for someone who stands for gender equality.
Who's working for the society.
Someone who's striving to make the city a better place.
Someone who's protecting the environment.
I'm nominating the woman who symbolizes strength. I'm nominating a woman who made a difference.
Together, let's recognize women who've made a difference. Visit the Facebook page of the Ministry of Women and Child Development. Complete the nomination form. Upload a photo or a video of the nominee. Review and accept the rules and regulations. Submit your nomination. Ask your friends and family to support your nomination and like your post.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Minister for Women and Child Development, Maneka Gandhi. Thank you very much for being here, Maneka, Mrs. Gandhi. And I wanted to start with this initiative of yours. Is the idea to showcase the usual celebrities, or is the idea to showcase women out there who perhaps we don't know about, but are actually making a difference?
Well, this is last year when I became minister. The first thing I wanted to do was to find one woman per district. So we announced these awards by ourselves that we would have one woman who symbolized various things. And we failed miserably because all the women that won were nominated by the district magistrate and obviously were out of the Rotary Club or relatives of his or, women who played bridge with him. So we then decided to go another route, and we went into collaboration with Facebook so that people nominate their own heroines. And this would make it much more egalitarian because you could have the women counselor, you could have somebody who taught you stitching, you could have somebody who did the ironing for the colony, anybody who you felt had become a role model and who personified things you'd like to see in women in India. And so 100 women will win, but they will be voted by India itself. And the only prize we're giving them is lunch with the president and one sari each, which is made by a designer. That's it.
So that's 100 women in a country with what? 55 million women?
Yes.
And counting?
Actually, the Prime Minister was quite excited by this as well. So when we presented it to him, he said, but what about the women who come second? He said exactly the same thing. What will happen to those that don't make the 100, especially if we have thousands of entries? So what he wanted was that the women who don't win but almost made it have lunch with the governor. That's good enough. So there'll be 36 governors.
You can take it right down the line. You can
whatever.
And end with the district magistrate, since the district magistrate was the source of your initial problems.
Yeah.
But the fact is that in a country as large as ours, there are remarkable women. Do you believe that in a sense the idea is to create new role models for a new India? Is that to showcase these women so that there are new role models out there?
Yes, to add to the role models, If India can have 33,000 gods, why not 33,000 goddesses who really live, who actually teach us how to live our lives? It would be nice to have that many people. And we can easily find them. Everywhere I look, I find somebody whom I would like to be, or who I feel really proud of, and I'm energized by. And you come across them all the time.
But I'm often wondering whether, a woman can be a homemaker. When we look at achievement, putting a home together is not easy either, particularly in many parts of this country. So, do you believe a homemaker is also an achiever in the Indian context?
Absolutely. I mean, I am who I am today because of my mother. So I just think that it's really homemakers where we all start from. And I know women who've kept the entire family together. They know every cousin, every niece, and every nephew. And every time there's a celebration, the whole Indian family, mere chacha ke, tau ke, nana ke, brother-in-law, they all come together. And it's wondrous, it's amazing. And yes, women like that also deserve every award.
So homemakers can be nominated?
Of course.
Okay, good. So that opens up more windows. You don't have to be a woman wrestler winning a bronze medal in a major tournament to qualify.
No, you simply just have to have changed other people's lives for the better. That's it. We wanted 5,000 nominations per person, but we're not going to reach that this year. Probably because our paperwork was so complex. But we've simplified it, and I'm thinking of increasing the time, because I don't think September 30th will bring in, after the simplified forms, as many people.
Just get Prime Minister Modi to put it on his Mann Ki Baat.
He has.
It's the easiest way to amplify it.
That's right. He's put it on his MyGov, and he's tweeted about it and stuff. So, yes, let's see how many we get this year.
Let me turn to you make news sometimes for the right reasons, sometimes for the wrong reasons. You made a statement recently which evoked a very strong reaction that all violence is male-generated. Are you saying that poor old souls like me are responsible for all the violence that's been out there, that this is a gender battle? Are we still fighting some kind of a gender war?
Well, I would say we are still actually fighting a gender war. If you look at it, it's maybe an invisible war now because I don't think men would take it up front. But perhaps my statement was, condensed to mean what it didn't mean. The question was that do you think that men should be sensitized about women's issues and about, how to behave with women? And I said yes, perhaps because most violence is male-generated. Now, it could be female-instigated. After all, a lot of dowry deaths take place because the mother-in-law decides. And we've had, when we did this Beti Bachao program in 100 constituencies, we actually started off by doing a Dadi Poti team, because the Dadi in the house decides whether the little girl will be born or not. So yes, female violence, violence may be instigated by women sometimes, but certainly, women don't rape women. And the actual hands-on violence is, men upon women.
But as you said, it could be the mother-in-law in the house. It could be.
As I said, it'd be instigated
it could be,
by her.
I know that's a stereotype, but the fact is that that women can often be their own worst enemies.
Oh, absolutely. It's not even a black and white issue at all, as it's being made out to be. And I'm sorry that it's turned into something so, so black and white. It's actually completely grey, the area. But as I said, women may instigate it.
Because you've now got men, for example, who are protesting against the manner in which they believe sexual harassment laws are being misused. Yeah. Male groups have been formed protesting against the manner in which Section 498A of the Dowry Act is being misused. Do you believe these groups are just fringe groups?
No,
Much like there are fringe groups within the Sangh Parivar, there are fringe groups among males.
I don't know whether they're fringe groups. I know that what's happened is there are a lot of people with very little to do. So, and the Twitter and Facebook gives you the ability to use your time rather than eating or sleeping. So maybe you create controversies where none exist. And that's what I think happened in this
So you
case.
support stronger laws on sexual harassment at the workplace. You believe there should be stronger anti-dowry laws. You believe that, just because there is the possibility of a misuse by a few, that cannot be used to prevent stronger laws for sexual harassment at the workplace.
No, I don't support stronger ones. I just believe the ones that exist are good. And they just need to be implemented. For instance, sexual harassment at the workplace. Up till now, very few companies have actually made the group that you can report to. So now what we've done is we've asked the Finance Ministry to put it that every company, when they file their returns, has to actually file that they have made this grouping within their company. And we do take it up. Lots of places, government hasn't taken it up either. But by the time we're through, give me another year or so, everybody will have a little group within, as mandated by the law, to look at sexual harassment cases.
So you're saying if a company or a corporate doesn't follow the Vishaka guidelines and doesn't ensure that there are sexual harassment committees in place as mandated by the law, the government will act against those companies?
Well, first they have to put it into their returns, into their audited thing. And if that doesn't happen, yes, there will be consequences. What they will be, we haven't decided as yet.
Is there one at India today? Okay. Prerna, are you sure, right? Okay, good. So we're okay. You mentioned corporates, and there was another interesting point that you made a few days ago, which is again sparked of a debate, and a healthy debate. Maternity leave for 8 months.
Yes.
Should women at the workplace get maternity leave for as long as 8 months? I think it's a terrific idea. And I like the claps. I don't know how many of you are actually going to implement it. Do you believe it's a double-edged sword?
Yes, it is. It is. And well, on one hand, it's really, really important. It depends, every single thing has consequences. So you have to take a call every day of your lives, every minute of the hour, on what you consider important and what you don't. If you eat the bread on the table, do you consider your momentary satisfaction more important than tomorrow's weighing machine? Everything has consequences, everything. So, on one hand, if you breastfeed the baby for 7 months, all these statistics say that you will get a healthier baby, you will get a more intelligent baby, you will get a more disease-immune baby. And that is, all three are really important. On the other hand, if you take off 7 months and 1 month on the last month of your pregnancy, will you be employable? We've got to, again, see whether the market will respond to this favorably or not. So it's an issue that has both sides, as you said, double-edged.
No, are you worried that Indian employers will simply say 8 months
Yes.
of maternity? Why should I then employ women?
Yes, that's what I'm worried about. If employers realize that an entire generation will come up, which is stronger, healthier, brighter, and better for India, then will they weigh that against their immediate pay checks to women who don't come for 7 months?
Does that mean that this proposal of yours is simply sort of loud thinking, or will it be? Are you saying it's driven by voluntarism, that some companies will do it, others will not, that you can't, like in the Scandinavian countries, mandate it in a country like India?
No, when it does its rounds, it will be mandated, if it's going to happen. At the moment, it's passed to the individual ministries, and everybody's been very favorable to it. It's now gone to a committee of secretaries, and they will give their opinion on it, and then it'll go to law.
You
so
support
it's doing it? Yes, I invented it. So
I know. So you will back this measure?
Yes, absolutely.
And the Prime Minister, have you raised it with him?
I have, and I've said that because he might want to think of the other side. Will it have an effect on the market? I don't think so. I think at some point the market is enlightened enough to absorb it. But there will be an initial little bump when people will say, oh my God, I can't afford these women. I'd much rather have, not have them.
Why not start with the government? Why doesn't the government of India decide that all women working in the government of India, whatever department, will get 8 months maternity leave? Start with the government and then we will follow.
It's a good idea, and it's the easiest part of it. Because government mandates and it's done.
So
government doesn't worry about losses and not losses. People come, they work, then we can look at it. I don't think you can make a separate law for government. But I see this happening. It's just how long it will take.
You believe it will happen sooner rather than?
I believe it will happen, yeah.
You're also throwing up another interesting idea, I'm told, which is prenuptial agreements.
Yes.
I thought all these things happened only in the West. That again is pretty revolutionary for a country like India to have a prenuptial agreement.
Actually, India has been so so weird at times. I don't know if any of you know about the Gujarat marriage laws, in which, a lot of young ladies used to run off with people who came to do puja in the house and stuff. So their fathers got really upset, and a long time ago they persuaded the British to mandate a special law for the Gujaratis, which was that they could get married through contract marriage. And at the end of a year, it would expire, and then you had to get remarried again. And otherwise, it would just expire. And the children would belong to the wife, the mother, and any goods in the family would belong to her. Now, that's progressive in one way and insecure. I'd be really frightened if I had to be on my best behavior every day, just in case my husband decided to let me go. But it still exists. I know at least one case where, an important family that we all know, where this happened. So, like that, prenuptial agreements are not Western. It is an idea which we thought was important only because if a divorce takes place, a lot of women have to go to court for maintenance. And they go on and on and on, year after year after year. And finally the man says, okay, I won't pay her, I'll pay the court. And then she has to go to court and stand there for hours and hours on a particular day, pay a bribe to the clerk who will give her the money in this disdainful, horrible manner. Not nice, not nice. We just thought that one of the ways out of this could be a prenup, in which it's mandated how much you will get, what you will get.
Let me get a vote from this audience. How many people, how many women in this audience or men in this audience would support a prenuptial agreement? There you've got, there we've carried out a referendum for you. and you can, how many of you would support 8 months maternity leave for women?
Well,
I see Kali doesn't have her hand up for 8 months maternity leave for a woman. This is the problem. This is the problem. Okay, the bottom line therefore is that on both, there's a lot of support for these new ideas. So obviously, do you believe that India is ready for it? Or are there multiple Indias? That an audience like this here at the Maurya could be very different from an audience, let's say, in deep down Bihar or UP or where you come from Pilibhit. If you carried a similar poll out in Pilibhit, do you believe you would get a similar response on, let's say, a prenuptial agreement or, you know?
Yes, perhaps. But before that, there's so many other things. For instance, another small thing that maybe my women in Pilibhit or in Uttar Pradesh might welcome even more than this. And that is that if your husband dies today, you don't automatically get listed as his successor because your name doesn't get put on as his widow. So you have to go to 8 different places. And when you're in a village, that means you bribe the Thanedar, the Lekpal, or Tehsildar, the DM. It goes right up until you can just be listed as his widow. So one of the things we're doing is also moving that when a man dies, automatically on the death certificate there will be a listing for his wife or widow. Now that would be, for my women, they'd first say yes to that, and then they'd say yes to the prenups, and then to everything else.
No, because you see, if you look at it historically, you look at, let's say, the Nair community in Kerala, or you look at the Khasis in Meghalaya, and you see that there have been strong systems that were put in place, social systems which were matrilineal, where the woman had equal rights as the men, in fact disproportionate rights. And maybe somewhere down the way we lost our way, or maybe North India in particular lost its way. And I'm just wondering whether it's now possible in the 21st century, armed with technology, armed with more progressive laws, to redress that balance.
Well,
or the imbalance that was set in for years.
I don't know whether we'll be able to turn everything into a matriarchal society, even though I'd be totally pro it. A friend of mine just went to Bhutan, and she went to all the outlying villages where everything belongs to the woman. And she said, what do you do when your husband abuses you or beats you? And they just laughed and they said, we throw them out. Everything belongs to us. So I don't know whether we can get there now through law, but perhaps we can learn to be more economically reliant. Maybe we can learn to use the laws better so that we become stronger. I'd be happy to have a society in which men and women consider themselves equal.
But as you said, giving the example of Pilibhit, you can have the laws, but let's be clear, the system itself in large parts of India still doesn't sort of support the woman in the way that it should. There is that kind of, we are sadly so, still male-dominated.
It'll happen. It'll happen. When we started this Beti Bachao thing, frankly, I just didn't think it would work at all. I just thought that we were, spitting in the wind, as it were. And people who were going to kill their daughters in the womb were actually educated people. It's not poor people who do it at all. So I just thought that they're not going to respond to ads and vans going into villages and to societal pressure, because they're going to do what they're going to do. But it's only been 6 months, and the statistics that have come in about the increase in the girl child in these 100 areas, I have to say, are very hopeful. Very, very hopeful. And they give me cause for great cheer. I can't reveal them now because, 6 months is too short a period. But when I come back to you after 18 months, then you will see that it is possible for people to change.
Okay, before I just get in a couple of questions from the floor, just one last. It's a question that I've often asked. Women in public life, like yourself, is it easier today than it was when you joined politics in the 1980s? Or are you still, in some way, still struggling in a male bastion that Indian politics remains?
Well, it's not easier now than it ever was. But the point is, I know this sounds strange, but I never went into politics as a woman or as a man. I went in because I had passions about different things, and I just felt that politics was a good way, one of the ways to fulfill them. And whether I'm in government or not, I follow the same route. So for me, is it easier or not easier? It's always been very difficult because my passions are not really easy to fulfill. It's not easy to protect a forest. It's not easy to get people to be compassionate. So if you're asking the question of me particularly, it's as difficult now as it always was. And it's not really political, But is it more difficult for women to be in politics now? I have to say this, and I say it with all tenderness. Women have created this problem for themselves. If it is more difficult today, or if it's as difficult today as it was 40 years ago, it's because we have disrespected the one opportunity that was given to us to be equal. 40 years ago, the Prime Minister created the Panchayati Raj. And in the Panchayati Raj, he said that there are 6 lakh villages. Of these, 1/3 will be headed by women. Every 3rd mayor will be a woman. Every 3rd municipal council chief will be a woman. Now that's huge amounts. That's 2 lakh villages ruled by women. I don't know how many 100 cities with women mayors, women municipal councillors. And yet, not one of these women, not one, has made it into MLA, MP, or anything upwards. And why? Because the 99% of the women who are elected to these positions choose to let their husbands do all the work, refuse to become people in themselves, refuse to learn the laws, refuse to learn what they can do to improve the village, refuse to do anything at all. So they retire back into their ghungats. And the man then becomes what is known as the Pradhan Pati, the Sarpanch Pati, the Mayor Pati. I mean, it happens in Delhi. In Delhi, your municipal councillors' husbands do what they do. Now, you can't catch them because they haven't put their signature anywhere. And you don't want to arrest a woman for money misuse or anything because you know perfectly well that she's sitting at home. She hasn't the faintest idea. If the National Commission for Women, when we made it, asked me, what should we do that leaves a footprint? And I said, I would like you to do 2 things. One is, take institutions that have been completely misused over the years, like lunatic asylums, where women are put in if they're widowed and have property. So do a comprehensive thing on those and change that system. But the second is, start training the sarpanches. There are 2 lakh sarpanches, divide them into district by district by district. Teach them how to make the village clean, how to get money from the government by writing for it, how to understand the laws, how to protect their women and children, how to see that the Anganwadi actually feeds the pregnant women or feeds the children. If you can do that, all these women will change India. And then we won't have this question about do you think it's more difficult now or less difficult now, only because it will be so easy. There will be so many women in a pool to choose from. At the moment, it's by name, wives, husbands, even girlfriends that come into parliament or come into the state assemblies. But it could be any one of these 2 lakh sarpanches, municipal councillors, and we can still do it. It's not too late.
But those women sarpanches perhaps don't have the kind of privileges and access that you had.
They do.
Maneka Gandhi came, had a family advantage which they didn't.
Hang on, I came in much after my husband died and in very peculiar circumstances. But those women do have the advantage because the entire system, once they're elected, is behind them. If you don't choose to use that, it's not correct. But we could train them up. So if we had NGOs that said, all right, we're not going to teach them stitching and tailoring and this and that, because every time we get a request, it's for teaching women stitching and tailoring. But if somebody said, all right, will you pay me this money to go and train 500 women sarpanches on what they can do for their villages and how they themselves can come up to the next level of politics, I would be happy to pay for it.
Okay. It's interesting because we did a Mahapanchayat on Bihar a few days ago and there wasn't a single woman throughout the panels and the only woman who came was Rabri Devi. And I thought it said something about the nature of Bihar politics even today in 2015, that she was in a sense the face of politics in the state. Just let's get a couple of questions in from the audience. If there is a mic, we'll put in a couple of questions. Yes, ma'am. There's a mic for you.
Hi, good morning. I'm going to say something on which I'm often misunderstood, so I'll risk it one more time. I've been working for 20 years, and I have been to many conversations about, get women and do this for them. And I mean, why does anybody have to do anything for us? Why is the debate not about we have to fend for ourselves like the lioness has to fend for herself? This whole thing about protect them and I just feel that it just reinforces in my mind that, maybe I'm less and I need to be protected. Is that a possibility or am I just cuckoo?
I'm not so sure that you can say this sitting here, in the middle of a 5-star hotel. If you sit about saying that why do women need to be protected and why do we need to do anything and we should fend for ourselves, you should actually go into a village and just see there is a physical difference, there is an educational difference, there is an internal confidence crisis, and that we need to tend to. We can't possibly all say, oh no, women are the same as men and we should just leave them be. If it was so, it would be wonderful, and maybe one day it will happen like that. But we need to give them special privileges in terms of we need to tend to their education. We need to give them powers, and we certainly need to give them more confidence, which would perhaps come with economic and educational fostering.
And yet, ma'am, you've got a culture minister who today has been quoted in the papers as saying that he doesn't like the idea of women going out in the night or girls going out in the night. I'm just wondering, I mean, in your own cabinet, you seem to have people who live in the 19th century.
It takes all sorts.
No, just a minute. What did you say, ma'am?
I said it takes all sorts to make a cabinet.
So I presume that means you disapprove, right?
I'm going to do a no comment on this.
No, but this is my problem. Shouldn't you and others speak out against those who still...
Wait, hang on a bit. Am I going to speak like a mother? Am I going to speak like a woman politician? I perhaps might also be frightened if I had a daughter if she went out and wasn't back by a particular, and there's not a single person here who won't ring up their daughter if she goes out and says, when are you coming back? Who are you going out with? Do you have a car to come back? Should I send the car? But we could overcome that if we had other systems put in, like better policing, more confidence in policing. Now, it's one of the things that we've started, and I'm happy to say that I've been fairly successful in this in a very short time, which is 33% of women in the police. Because we pushed it from day one, we've now got all the UTs have got 33%. The first batch of Delhi women police, 1,400 of them, which will form 1/3 of the police force, passed out on the 18th of this month. We have got 3 major states that are going to be 1/3 women. And by the time I'm through, everybody, it will be 1/3 women. And that will certainly make a difference. It has made a difference wherever there are more women significantly in the police. It's one of the things that we need to do.
It might change Mahesh Sharma's mindset also, right? But let me get another question. Ma'am, you had the lady in the white? No, let her respond, because there was another question, ma'am. You have a mic?
No, mine is a very light-hearted question, is that if a woman in a workplace is allowed to have, it's possible for her to avail of 8 months maternity leave, do you think the number of children per family will increase? Just a question.
It's not that light-hearted. In the upper middle class, it is light-hearted. But in a village, a woman does have more children if she believes that she's not going to be able to see them grow to adulthood. So she does have more like that. If the child that is being fed were to be stronger, healthier, better, more intelligent, and she could see that, she would not have more children.
Let me get yes, ma'am. I'll get you there. Ladies first today.
Good morning, everybody. Ma'am, I have a very simple question. I'm a lawyer by profession, and your recommendation about a prenuptial agreement is absolutely laudable. But would you and your ministry also consider recommending equitable and proportionate asset distribution at the times of divorce so that the women are not shortchanged? They're not just left with some maintenance amount granted by the courts and then to fend for themselves, but after investing several years of their marriage. And you could make it proportionate to the number of years invested in marriage, to be fair to both the sexes, so that they have equitable rights in the assets, marital assets, as far as the divorces are concerned. Thank you so much.
It's definitely worth considering, and thank you for telling me. We'll put it on our radar and see where we can go with it.
Yes, the gentleman here. Yes, sir.
See, I come from Banasthali Vidyapit, which is an 80-year-old institution for women, and there are 13,000 students receiving education there. We started a very good practice in Banasthali, and perhaps we were the first to start the 6 months maternity leave in Banasthali. And now our executive council has almost decided to make it 1 year. And this provision is restricted up to 2 children only, and there is no question of having more children because of this facility.
Yes, that's an amazing thing. As I said, India, is enlightened enough to absorb this.
Let me get one final question. Is there anyone else who has a question? Interesting. It's interesting that a lot of people have raised this issue. You've obviously struck a chord with this 8-month maternity leave. I think somewhere many women who've gone through the workplace can identify with it.
Because only a woman will understand how agonizing it is to leave a 3-month-old baby at home and push off to some work. Your mind is neither here, it's with the baby, you're ringing up all the time, you don't know what to do.
Is that the reason why you think women haven't been able to break the glass ceiling?
No, we've broken it many, many times.
Okay. In corporate India, you still need to do much more. Let's be clear. 49% women, 51% men. Nationally, we don't have 49% CEOs or remotely close to that. But yes, Kali.
But in answer to that, now the new order is that every single board has to have a director on it, which is a woman. Now this, again, we instigated. And what it's resulted in is that the first tranche of women, of course, wives and daughters. But sooner or later, the Commerce Ministry is going to say that it has to be a non-relative and it has to be a professional woman. So then we will have to find professional women to put on boards. And that will also have to be put into the audit
of the company.
Ma'am, our current Prime Minister is a bachelor, doesn't necessarily have a family and children. Does this make your job for getting some schemes passed around women development, around children, around family, easier or much harder?
No, I don't think it has any bearing at all. And the reason why is because he's been Chief Minister forever. And while he was Chief Minister, he had to deal with the same problems. And women got a good deal in Gujarat. There are lots and lots of teeny-weeny programs that were started, which were very sensitive. And even their nomenclatures were sensitive. You know, for instance, Anganwadi houses being called Nandghar. Lots and lots of things started. Now, for instance, he's the first one to notice that a lot of tribal girls suffer from sickle cell anemia. Now, that actually takes some amount of sensitivity to understand that. So, I don't think being a bachelor or not in this particular case has made any difference. Because he has a history of, once you administer, and if you are a good administrator, then you grow above these things, or you grow apart from them.
But is your sense that there is still a very sharp north-south divide? You go to a Tamil Nadu, you go to a Kerala, you can visibly see change. You see women out there in all kinds of professions. You see a sense of empowerment, the way they dress, the way they deal with you, and you still don't see it to the same extent in the Uttar Pradesh, the Bihars, the Haryanas. Is this going to get worse in your view? Is this gap only going to widen?
Yeah, you can't compare anything in India to Uttar Pradesh or Bihar. So it's
you are a member of Parliament of Uttar Pradesh, mind you, ma'am.
Alas. The thing is that, no, it's not a north-south divide. It's a really state-by-state difference. You have an equal number of Punjabi women working. You have lots of women in Delhi. It's different. In Madhya Pradesh, they're coming up. In fact, they've made something amazing called Shaurya Dal, which protects the village and is doing extremely well. No, it's just Uttar Pradesh and Bihar.
Now, don't tell me that you want to create an India without UP and Bihar.
But the point is there anybody willing to take it?
Let me then conclude. You've got a powerful, influential audience here, and another one possibly watching you on television. Is there a message that you'd like to give, a sort of pointed message that you believe can be sort of an instrument of change?
No, just be confident. Be willing to be educated. Be willing to learn. Be willing to give. Be compassionate in spirit. And always be kind. These are the things that will change India. For men, for women, for children, for everybody. That would be my message.
Maneka Gandhi, you've been wonderful this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a big hand to our first guest this morning, Maneka Gandhi.
Ma'am, it's been such a pleasure to hear you speak. In fact, just before I began, I was speaking to a colleague of mine, and we were just having a casual banter. We are new mothers, and we were talking about, how some facets of pregnancy can be so overrated. And I'm so glad you just validated and corroborated some of those concerns. No one sticks to truth anymore, at least. Anyway, it's been such a pleasure, ma'am. I'll just request you. I request Raj Chingappa, Group Editorial Director of Publishing, to kindly come on stage and kindly give a token of appreciation to our guest. Can we have a round of applause, please?